Good morning and afternoon. It's Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific, our new showtime. Welcome all. I'm Kane and I'm joined with David, better known as the Workday Sharing Guy. Also joining us is Denise, Logan, and special guests. Welcome to the Sharing Show.
Thank you, Kane. Can you please tell me a little bit more about Zoom?
Absolutely. So all lines are muted and we have opened the chat. So please interact. We want to see comments, suggestions, shares and asks. And just please remember to when you do send your chat to change the default so you are sending the messages to everyone here. Select panelists and attendees. So now we are ready to get this show started. Over to you.
And before this week's survey Kahoot, we would like to do a quick Share-a-thon status update from David, the Workday Sharing Guy.
Hello, all sharing fans. First, apologies to those who joined at the previous start time of 8 a.m. Pacific. We've moved it up to 9 a.m. Pacific. Hopefully, most of you received an email from Denise also asking for your t-shirt size, which is something that will relate to the Kahoot we do at the very end when we have a podium for the top 3 scores. So my disclaimer, every week, I used to be a Workday active employee. I was Workday employee 149. My hire date is in 2007. I am no longer a Workday employee. I have an agreement with Workday that I'll be clear to everybody. I'm not in any way representing Workday, and actually everybody here, we're all customers. We're just representing ourselves. These share-a-thons and the sharing show are opportunities for customers to share with each other. This is not training. For training, I highly recommend the Workday training from Workday. Last week, we had a short video of previously on the sharing show. And so this week, instead of previously on the sharing show, I'm just going to point out one thing that was introduced at the last sharing show was a potential share-a-thon in Europe. There's a post now on Community. The first share-a-thon in Europe will be in May or June, depending on the dates and the potential hosts. There's a number of cities to vote for in a SurveyMonkey. This is the current list of cities and votes in, it's been 2 days since my post. So several people voting on cities. Make sure if you are interested, for those of you in North America, to fly to Europe, be clear on which cities you'd be interested in going to. One person asked a question saying they're not familiar with share-a-thon concept and what's the format of these and how do they usually work? So what I wanted to show is there's been several share-a-thons in the past 3.5 years. There's even a time I did 5 consecutive share-a-thons in 5 days. It was a coast-to-coast charity event for Parkinson's disease, the Parkinson Voice Project, and I called it a 5-day share-a-thon marathon. That was back in August 2017. There's also been share-a-thons that were in Pleasanton, a few miles from the Workday office, and in Chicago and in Vegas the day before Rising the past 2 years. Take a quick look at this. There are 3 different cities here. The hint was that it was a coast-to-coast share-a-thon marathon. And those who have been doing our Kahoots know that the first one we do is a survey. It's at the end that we have quizzes.
All right, so let's get ready for our first survey Kahoot here. If everyone will open a browser on either your smartphone or your computer and just go to kahoot.it, we'll get started.
Denise, it's asking me for a pin.
Okay, so for today's pin, it is 65370. If you'll put that in, put in a nickname. All right, let's get started. Okay, we have 4 questions today. Our first question is, how long have you been doing Workday? Less than 2 years, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 7 years, or over 7 years? Looks like the majority have been doing it 2 to 5 years. So that's a good number. Gives us a good idea of where everybody's at. How many episodes of the Sharing Show have you attended live? This is my first. I've not missed any. I've missed only 1, or I've missed 2 or more.
Okay, we're down to 5 who have not missed any. We went from 6 up to 8, down to 5. Okay, which share-a-thon was your favorite? There was several share-a-thons besides in the cities. So reporting calc fields dashboard, that's A. Blue is boomerang or pushing the boundaries. Yellow is BPs, integration, or recruiting. If you went to Vegas, you could pick any of those 3 topics. Otherwise, if you've never been to a share-a-thon, that's green. Okay, several people have never been to a share-a-thon. There's been actually about 8 different share-a-thons that were reporting calc fields and dashboards. So I could see how that would have been the favorite for many people. What is your favorite type of puzzle? Red Sudoku, blue crossword, yellow jumble. If you like puzzles, please pick one of those. If you don't like puzzles, select green. It looks like Sudoku is a winner, barely over crosswords. Jumble is not very favorite, and some people don't like puzzles at all.
And what is next on the agenda?
Up next, we have Ask David on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so this week I had a few different questions come in over LinkedIn. This particular one is something I want to bring attention to, because somebody reaches out to me and asks, they're looking for a Workday opportunity. Do I know of any? And I think I've mentioned this in previous shows. There's companies reach out to me all the time looking for people, and also people reach out to me wondering if I know of companies. So feel free to reach out to me in either case if you're looking for people or if you're looking for a company. But also reach out to me just with questions. So I get questions all the time on LinkedIn. I do what I can to answer if I can, or I ask my network, or your question might come here actually on the sharing show as an anonymous question. This is exactly one of those cases. I was asked on a lookup value as of date. What happens, this is a calc field, for those who don't know how to read the screen, but it's a calc field on the worker object, shows on the top, and here it says which field it is. It's the legal name title. And on that field, instead of specifying either the entry date or the effective date, what would happen if you specify both? So I have my guess as to how this works, but it's like anything else in Workday, you want to test it. But this is the first time here now where we're going to make sure people know the chat lines are open. And if you do know what happens in the lookup value as of date, if you specified yesterday for both of those, excellent time for you to put something into the chat.
Remember to send your chats to all panelists and attendees. That way everyone can interact. And how about an update on last week's Ask?
Okay, thank you, Logan. So here is a picture of last week's Ask. It was from somebody who wanted to know, how do you go about on standard reports handling when there's deprecated fields? There's quite a lot behind this question. Several different ways in which you can copy a report of standard reports, put filters on it, try to find do not use fields and deprecated fields. The reason why we brought this up is this was answered, and it was answered here on community. You see node 521697. And so this was asked and answered. And if you're looking at the date, this was same day it was answered.
It's time now for this week's Ask.
Hi, thank you. This is Lisa, and my ask is, I'm curious if anybody's ever built a Workday to SurveyMonkey integration. I've checked community, could only find one post out there, and I don't know if we're overcomplicating it, but let me tell you about the challenges we have. We do our pulse surveys from SurveyMonkey, and every time we do them, it takes hours of work gathering the information before we can get it into SurveyMonkey. And then once all the surveys are completed, we download that information. We have to do all this analysis outside, which also takes a lot of time. So my ask is, if anybody's ever done it, what's it like? Is it challenging? And then also curious if anybody's got a better survey tool. And I see there's some responses on the chat about the Workday survey tool. And unfortunately, it's not robust enough in the way it's built out. So that's not one of the options that we can use. So looking for a more robust survey tool with reporting capabilities and visibility for senior leaders.
While you have the microphone, did you have anything else related to SurveyMonkey or anything Workday at all?
No, I think really that's one of the challenges we're facing, because we want to get a pulse on the company, but also do it in a way where employees don't feel, because the information's anonymous. And when I also feel, with addition to the Workday thing, is that if it's sent from Workday, they don't truly believe, and then the responses may not be as genuine. So we really want to gain employees' trust by sending it in a tool that they would think is associated with their profile.
Okay, so this I believe will be a lively discussion. And then Lisa, what happens, as you've seen in this show, often the next week we come back to something from the previous show. So we will come back to the chats next week. Thank you, Lisa, for your ask and your share.
Okay, let's see some more asks from our SurveyMonkey.
All right, and when Denise says from our SurveyMonkey, this was a reminder email that Denise sent out to all those who have registered that we were starting 1 hour later this week. And from now on, always starting at 9 a.m. Pacific. Here's one question that came up, and I think I saw in the chat window somebody's already answered it. How do you select all? What's the keyboard shortcut? So it is Control A. But then after Control A, I've seen on different keyboards and different browsers, I always do Control A and then the space bar. Some people do Control A and then Enter. So go ahead in the chat if you want to discuss that one. Another question that came up, an ask in the SurveyMonkeys. I would love to get some insight on how people start figuring out security when the field is tied to tenant non-configurable. I get lost in what to do next. And one final ask from the surveys, any suggestion on handling Workday Studio code that's running for more than 6 hours? How do you handle that? I'm going to answer that question first. How you handle that is just like a report that runs over 6 hours. Maybe you didn't know there was a limit also on reports. How you handle that is you have to split it up. Feel free to reach out to me if you want more details. It's the chat is probably a good place for people with studio experience to discuss that during this show live, but let's just say it's not easy. You can't just check a box inside Studio and say split this up so that it runs in under 6 hours and you're going to do 3 different parts of it. The rationale behind that is Workday has to put some limits. Reports have to time out after 6 hours. Studio has to time out. It's like renting an apartment building, turning on all the water and then leaving, right? You can't do that. You have to only use so much water. Same with using CPUs on Workday's system or on the system that you're renting from Workday. If you have asks, put them in the chat and they might show up here next week. It could be anonymous or we'll reach out to you if you want to actually speak to it. Some quotes from last week. I look forward to the sharing show every week. I always learn something from the show. I truly believe in the next few months of the show, we'll have more than hundreds and even thousands of fans participating. So thank you for that quote. Some of these quotes come from the last week's chat. Some of these come from the SurveyMonkey. You guys are doing a great show, fun, objective, and instructional. Enjoying and learning from your program. Keep it up. This is great. This is always great to hear encouragement. So feel free to continue that in the chat or watch your email. You should have received an email from Denise the other day. Your quote could go here. Again, it's anonymous unless you want the microphone. We could give you some airtime. Here's an anonymous question that came in. Help with financial calculated fields. Can anyone share how they went about getting a good understanding of the different kinds of calc fields and how to build them? This is an area where I struggle, especially with the lookups. Thank you. Well, this is David, the Workday sharing guy. I got to tell you, this is an area where I don't struggle. I've done rising presentations on this. I feel calculated fields is in a way 2 levels. You either get it or you don't. And if you get it, it's a breeze from there on out. If you don't quite get it, then you understand most calc fields perhaps, and you could play with them, edit them. But when you come across a lookup, then sometimes that's a little confusing. So let's just see if I can come up with some helpful information. Oh, look here, I have some slides for this question. So this is a picture of a report, and in the report I put a worker field, first name, age, hire date, date of birth, active status, manager level 1, and dependents. This is the first thing, believe it or not, in understanding calc fields is recognizing those icons. There's a self-referencing icon, used to be a circle, now it's something else, I'm not sure what that is. T for text, pound sign for number, date is a calendar, a TF for true false, a teaspoon for a one-to-one relationship, and then a back massager, we used to call it in the Workday training, or a fork, if you will, for one-to-many, such as dependents. That first picture is in the report where I went ahead and added, to be clear, you could add fields that are on a related business object. So in the first column here, on the worker, we have a hire date field. On the manager level 1, we also have a hire date field. So that's that worker's manager. The worker also has a field called dependents. You could have 0 dependents, you could have more than 1. And there's a date of birth on that object. Let's say you wanted to figure out the difference in months between a worker's hire date and their manager's hire date. There is a calc field for that. It's called date difference. So say you create a calc field following my naming convention of ZCF, and then DTD for date difference, hire date versus the manager's hire date. Well, you have right here the hire date on the worker, but how are you going to get the hire date from the manager? If you click that 3-line hamburger, you're not going to be able to go off of business objects. So remember, the hire date that we want to do the date difference on is on a different object. It's on the manager level 1. I'm going to wrap this up here by pointing out, for those who don't know, you could click on anything blue in Workday, the words, the text when it's blue, and when you click on blue for worker, it will show you the worker object. And when I go ahead and filter on this worker object on the source field, it's only the Workday delivered. There's over 2,000 fields on the worker, over 2,200 fields on the worker. If you looked at the calc fields, it's often over 3,000 or even 4,000, depending on your tenant. On the worker object, there was a field called dependents, and it says very clearly, it's a report field, and it's dependents. And this is a picture of what it looked like in the report. And there was a date of birth on that field called dependents. If we take a closer look, we see that the dependents field on the worker object is actually a business object. So the field name is dependents, it's on the worker object, but the name of the object that it is, the dependents, is a one-to-many, a back massager of the object called dependent, singular instead of plural. And you'll see here that the dependent object has much less than the worker object, about 150 fields on the dependent business object. So this is important because if you're going to understand calc fields and you need to know lookup related value, you do need to know about this related business object. Manager level 1 is the manager field, manager level 1 field. And the challenge for you would be approximately how many fields are on that manager. So we are ready now for the quiz. I'm going to remind people that there was this picture of a coast-to-coast 5-day Share-a-thon marathon. This picture, I will wait a minute here or so just for people who have been to the sharing show before. You know that what we do is we ask you, or we play a game called Count the Logans.
Okay, it's time for our quiz. So let's see who will make the podium this week. If you'll go back to your browser and go to the Kahoot IT, we will give you a new pin for this. You may have to refresh if you're still there. So our pin for the quiz is 656311. And remember, there will be one hopefully right answer for these questions. All right, here we go. There's 3 questions. How many Logans do you see? 0 to 5, 8 or 9, 11 or 12, or 13 or more?
Oh my
Looks like
gosh.
3.
Only 3 people saw all the Logans. Okay, so people are getting used to how this works. We haven't played Count the Logans for a while. Vanessa's on top, Tom R next, and then Josh. The top 3, the only 3 who got the right answer. Which city was not part of my 5-day Share-a-thon marathon back in 2007? Los Angeles, blue is Dallas, yellow is London, and green is Boston. Which city was not part of my coast-to-coast Share-a-thon marathon? Pretty much I gave it away, but let's see. Okay, a lot of people, most people got that answer right. I did not fly from the US to London and back, but I will be doing that, going to Europe at least in May or June for European Share-a-thon. Tom R is in the lead, Josh close behind, Vanessa, Anna, and Missy, all close to being in the top 3 to be on the podium. We have one final question. How many fields are on the manager business object? Less than the dependent business object, between 200 and 500, between 501 and 1,000, or this is actually a trick question. The manager is a worker. So there's over 2,000 fields on the manager business object. A lot of people got that right. It is a trick question. There is no manager business object. There's a field for the manager, manager level 01. But your manager is, of course, a worker. And that worker's manager is also a worker. So congratulations to all those who got that one right. And let's see who's on the podium who will be winning t-shirts. Josh is the winner. Tom R, you're close behind. And Vanessa in third. So congratulations to all those who made it to the podium. Now to wrap this up, I'm going to make sure to be clear here. We showed this. And people know now it wasn't London. I went from Los Angeles to Dallas to Boston, and this was before the World Series. I was born and grew up in Los Angeles, and the person who invited me to the Boston Share-a-thon to present made a side bet with me, and I was forced to wear a certain hat and shirt during the Calc Field Share-a-thon, and that's that picture of me doing that. I do not want to talk about the Super Bowl. Oh, a reminder here for those who didn't see the Logans. So there were 7 inside the bowl or on the edge of the bowl and 4 over on the side. So once again, a prime number, 11 Logans. Kane, over to you.
Thank you, David and Denise, Logan, and special thank you to our guests for speaking today on the show. As always, we will be publishing this on our dedicated YouTube channel. You will also find all the previous shows there listed, as you can see on the screen. Please head over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, also set the notifications so you get notified when this episode is up. And don't forget, next week we are at the new time again at 9 a.m. Pacific, so it's 1 hour later than last week. Lastly, thank you everybody for joining. It's been a pleasure to have you all today, and enjoy the rest of your week and have a great work day.